Alrighty, welcome everybody to another Patient Summary FHIR IG call. This is our first one after the last HL7 AU Connectathon that we had in Sydney, and it's the last one that's going to be done underneath the auspices of AU Core Technical Design Group, which is becoming an AU Core work group. And we're going to have an update on that from Michael Wilson, who is an incoming AU Core co-chair. To just talk about how that relates to this project. But I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country and that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all gather today, which for me is the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we acknowledge the First Peoples as the first scientists, educators, and healers. Here's our agenda. I really don't think we'll get through it all, but let's give it a go. We're going to start with usual business, approval of minutes updates. There's a lot of updates to talk about, including some of the changes that are going on at the work group level. Um, we'll do some of the Connectathon report back and some of the hot topics, and there is going to be, I think, a vote put forward to the group from the outcomes of that. There was some really interesting discussions, and Graham Grieve is going to take some things forward at an international level. And so we'll get an update on that and why we think we need to defer one of those issues. I'll give a quick, where are we now in terms of our coverage of testing from Patient Summary before Dushika, who is a primary editor of the AU Patient Summary FHIR IG, will kind of bring us up to speed on the artifacts that look like that we think have met the AFMM2 criteria and put that to the group that we should now mark these as AFMM2. If we have any time, I still want to do a QA.html walkthrough. And we can even talk about what that is if that term is unfamiliar to you. It's something we do need to get to, but we can just hold it over to the next meeting if we don't, and then we'll talk about what's next. So that's kind of the plan for today. There'll be a few votes, lots of updates, lots of kind of report backs and some tie-ins to what's happening at International. Now, does anyone want to add anything else to today's agenda?
Oh,
All right, so let's go through with this. If something strikes you, you can just pop your hand up at any time and say, look, I think we need to be talking about this. We'll either fit it in today or add it to a later agenda. And as always, if there's something you want to talk about, but you don't want to talk about it necessarily today, you can either comment in the Zulip for AU Patient Summary, or you can reach out to one of the co-chairs to request that something goes on the agenda. So let's do usual business first up. Um, as always, we've got approval of previous minutes. Now, we've got two sets to do. The reason we have two sets is because we cancelled the previous AUPS call because there was just so many a row since we were going to be doing a face-to-face. So we've got the last call, which is this one, and then this is the face-to-face minutes, which I sent out last night. So I'm actually thinking we defer that and let's just approve the one that has been sent round with enough time for people to review. So I'll just go to that now so that we can have a look. So let me just run through that. All right. So the last call, which is not the last meeting, because there was a really fantastic face-to-face in Sydney. But the last call, what we went through, um, is, as you know, we did our usual content. We updated a lot on the actions in the news. We talked about some of the Zulip polls that were out there because there's a lot of development work going on. It's that time of year where AU Core, Patient Summary, and all sorts of specs, AU Base as well, are basically into their new development area. We did a bit of a ballot update. And we talked about what does ballot mean at a high level for the Australian Patient Summary FHIR IG project. And then we went into and spent the rest of the meeting around what we've been calling as no known meds. So that this was a revisit. We did a revisit on that, and then we actually made a decision on where we want to go for no known medications. and then there were some next steps. Uh, Before we approve the minutes, I can actually give an update that this has been agreed in AU Core and in AU Base. So what we talked about in this meeting has now been carried through, so it's consistent across AU Base, AU Core, and AU Patient Summary. So that's a really good outcome. But either way, that's basically the minutes of our last online call, which was the 20th of February. Does anyone want any more time to review these before we look to approve? Let's go to attendees. All right, I'm not hearing any. So is someone happy to motion approval of the minutes of the 20th of February?
I'm happy to motion, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley. Is anyone happy to second?
Happy to
Happy to
second.
second.
Oh, the agency, both together.
It's a fight between Tim and
Yeah.
Ricardo. I think Ricardo pipped you at the post, Tim.
Might have, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Ricardo will go with seconding. And now I'll just find the online poll for people. Let me just grab that up. Polls. Okay. So you should see in front of you the approval poll for these minutes. Please vote affirmative, negative, or abstain. Everyone online, please vote whether you were at the meeting or not. I mean, you can vote abstain. You weren't there. If you've not reviewed the minutes, that's fine. If you don't have access to the poll, could you just pop, and you do have access to the chat, put a +1 for affirmative, negative, or abstain in the chat. And if you've dialed in, say your name and affirmative, negative, or abstain. Let me just look at this. Okay, we've got 80% of people voted, so we're just looking for a few more to vote before I look to close that poll. Couple of people just waiting. All right. I'm going to count that down now. In 5, 4. Sorry, Brett, you might need to go on mute unless you're trying to ask a question. Okay, mute. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll. I will share the results. I'll just check the chat. I don't think there's anything in the chat, but I'll just check it. I didn't have it open. Nope. Okay, so what we have are 14 affirmative, 0 negative, and 8 abstain, so the motion carries. For people who this is your first meeting, what I'm showing to you is what Zoom allows you to see. I've got special privilege rights, so you only see percentages, but I see the exact numbers of who's voted, and that's what I'm reading out. Okie dokie. So I would like to defer approval of the minutes of the 10th, unless there are any objections or concerns around that. Not hearing any. Let's do updates and news. In a way, a lot of this meeting is going to be updates and news. So much of it is actually part of the slides on the report back to the Connectathon. There are a few things that aren't specifically covered. It's worth bringing to people's attention that there is a IPS summit, if you're interested, that's going to be happening at a time zone people in Australia can actually go to, which is so unusual. So there's an IPS summit in Brussels. And for Brisbane folks, it starts at like 5 p.m. Which is amazing. It only goes for a few hours. So that I think is like 6 p.m. still in Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney. So if you're interested, the links will be in the chat in the minutes. And I think the agenda is here. So the agenda is going to go through this content around a lot of things around, I think, the international nature of IPS and getting some advice really from both jurisdictions and from large-scale multinational implementations. And looking at where does IPS go from here to make sure it stays truly international. noting the necessary work that different jurisdictions like us are doing to make sure that it works within, the country setting that we need it to. So I think that's really the focus. Ricardo, is there anything else you wanted to say on this? Because I know, of course, the agency is the GDHP rep.
Um, Probably not. I guess, yeah, just if people can attend, that would be great if you can register to attend. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's anything else. Yep.
Alrighty. Um, Now we're going to go into it in a bit more detail, but I just wanted to advise people the AU Core work group is kicking off. So that's happening, and I wanted to, I think, just really advise people that this is a project-focused call. Um, the main call of AU Core is still happening, and that's where all the administrative work group governance things are. So if you want to be a part of things around missions and charters, how do projects work within a work group, that won't happen in this call. That's going to happen in the main call. So just please be aware that we're going to keep, I guess, the project things focused here, and you'll need to look to the other call that is the main work group one to be involved around governance and operational things at that level. The last update I want to give that is a bit divorced from any of our activities is that I've been directed from HL7 Australia to not allow the AI note takers into the meetings at the moment. The reason for that is post our meetings, you've probably got them as well if you're on the mailing list. The note takers have been emailing out to the entire mailing list to say, hey, we're finished, please have a look at this. But it's going out to hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's a misuse of the mailing list. So at the moment, the request from HL7 AU is to not allow the note takers into the meetings. So we're not going to be doing that for now. Uh, that may change in future, but that's current. As of this meeting, that's what's happening. Okay, oh no, I clicked on something. Whoops. Let's go on to the next slide. Right, here we go with some of the other ones. Here was our schedule. And I say was because we're in the report back. Our next meeting, which I had happily put on the timeline as 3rd of April, is about where we do our first ballot resolution. So all the changes. However, public holiday, we cannot do it on the 3rd of April. So we need to work out what we do. Do we shift this? Do we cancel entirely? Do we like move it back a day or two? Do we put it to the next week instead? Like just put it back a week? And that's what I need to ask people on the line around what they're happy to do instead of having the 3rd of April meeting. I'm not going to suggest that we hold it on the public holiday. We will need to do something. So I'm gonna bring up a poll to start the conversation. Let me just find it. Okay, I just put up a few options here. And then I'm going to ask people to like speak to it. And we can do some Johnny on the spot polls if we need. So let me know if you want to, what you want to do. Or about 40% of people have voted. And now we're at 70%. Ooh, 80%. So just a couple more people, and then I'll count this down and we'll talk about what that looks like.
Just while that's happening, on the 10th in particular, if that's what we're suggesting the week after, there is a tentative information session for AU Core
Is
R3.
there? On what?
Well, I did put my hand up to do document reference that day.
Did you email me about it?
I did, yes.
Oh, I've lost it. All right, good. I'll schedule that in.
But time-wise, that's adaptable, I guess.
Yep. All right. I'm going to count this down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end the poll. We have some pretty majority looking results. So Looking at the percentages, especially with the I don't mind, for me that looks like we do move to April 10 as our first ballot reconciliation call. Um, that's what I would read out of that because it is of a specific result the overwhelming opinion. Are there any objections or concerns? Do people want to proffer a another date besides April 10 that we should talk about before we just say, look, let's pencil that in? Tony?
Why not put it to the 17th?
We already have one on the 17th. So that would be the cancel option.
Yep, if you like.
So there is scheduled one for the 17th. And so this is do we move our next meeting, which would happen before the 17th? If we wanted to cancel it, then our next meeting would, become the 17th. Heath.
I know that ballot review is not finished yet, but do you think there's significant number of responses that we will require 4 sessions, 5 sessions?
Oh, I think volume-wise, no. I would, however, advise that we are still working on some issues that got raised 7 months ago as a community. So I'm not so sure that it's volume that I think is the predictor of that.
Mm.
I mean, we can. So I think there's enough people who have indicated that they would come that it would be worth having a meeting. If those people can attend on April 10th, which looks like it's going to be 25 people, looking at the numbers that I have in front of me, and given how many that are on the call now, that's, I think, enough to hold a meeting on April 10th.
Stephen, what did
I'm missing hands up if people have their hand up.
Stephen's just put a note in there about some times and
chat?
dates and stuff. I'm not sure what that alludes to, if it's on this topic or not.
27th of March.
And Stephen's
I don't know what that
indicated he
means.
doesn't have a voice at the moment, so he's only using chat, so he probably doesn't
Okay.
want to respond. Otherwise.
When's the 27th of March? Actually, it's
Yeah.
probably a good point. Sorry. 27th of March. Today
Yeah.
is the
Next week.
20th.
So next
That's
week.
next Friday?
That's the Brussels.
Oh,
On-
it's okay, gotcha. Sorry, yeah, Steve, thank you, Michael. Yeah, and thank you, Stephen, for clarifying. That's the specific time zones for the IPS Brussels Summit. So I'm going to put in for now a schedule for our next meeting to be on the 10th of April. I will move that one date. And if we turn out not to have quorum or sufficient people to make what we feel is reasonable decisions around ballot reconciliation, we can just end it early.
Okay.
Alrighty. Next one is, this one. Do you want to speak to this, Michael Wilson?
Yeah, I can do that. So we had a discussion about daylight savings time for the AU core work group main call yesterday. And we decided to have a Zulip poll because there were some suggestions that maybe we need to change some days or times as well. So we've got one. I'll actually put it in the chat here, I think. So 5th of April, which will be a couple of meetings time, that we are actually changing go out of daylight savings for some of the eastern states. So I've created a Zulip poll to say, do we keep the existing 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or do we move it to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would have been the equivalent of Eastern Daylight Saving Time? And then there's also the option to suggest something else. And I can see Marika there has actually made a suggestion of a different time on Friday. So we're going to run this poll to see when we hold these meetings after daylight savings. I think that one you've just talked about rescheduling now for 10th of April will fall in daylight saving. So we might need to agree today about what time that meeting is, which I would suggest that we keep it the same for consistency. And in that meeting, we'll discuss the results of this poll and from then on schedule an ongoing meeting schedule if that works for everyone.
The
Can
problem
I
is it's not the same in at least one time zone.
can I ask how long the poll should be
Yes.
open for? Like, I think having it open for a week is long enough,
Um,
but what would be your preference?
oh, I was just thinking that we don't have the time to discuss the results or have
I'm not so sure we need to
no
discuss. I
name
think
up.
that's why we have a vote.
Yep. So we can do that as well. We just won't be able to send out the meeting invite until we've confirmed that time then for the next meeting.
Okay, no, I'll qualify my statement on I don't think we need to discuss. If the results are overwhelming majority on one, that's the decision. Like that's the vote. If they're really close, I would agree something else needs to happen to make a choice there.
Given we just agreed to move the next meeting, I think we should also agree what time that next meeting is today, so that we have some certainty coming out of this. And then that's the opportunity then to have the ongoing meeting after that
Yeah,
at the
so if
agreed
we
time.
held it on the 10th of April, which is 13, hang on, how many days away? If we hold it on the 10th of April, that is
21 days.
3 weeks.
that's really far away.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
What have I done?
Because
I've done
we
something
moved it to the
wrong.
week after. We moved it to the week after the regular meeting.
I feel like I've done something wrong. So instead of the 3rd of April,
It'll be the week
okay,
after on the
we
10th.
go 10th. All right, so instead of 14, it's 21. To be honest, I would say, okay, I think I was probably thinking that was enough time for this to be finished and we do that next meeting on this timeline.
I
It's
agree.
21 days. Is that, I think that's a reasonable lead in.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Are there, so, okay, so that's my suggestion is that this poll is open for a week or so. Um, if there's a really clear result, we go ahead with that, and that we make the next meeting, all the next meetings match the time that fits this one, if there is a clear result. If there isn't a clear result, I guess we might have to put up a second poll in this particular Zulip to try to reach a like a time runoff, if you will. We we come back like an election runoff, but about particular times.
The issue at the moment is that it's
Hmm.
close because we're actually duplicating our votes. Like you and I, for example, and a lot of people have actually voted on both option 1 and 2, hence it's close.
Yes, because you can have multiple choice. So for all the times that you can be available for, you can do a tick. Yeah. Stephen, I think I cut you off. Oh, but you don't have a voice at the moment. Okay. Marvin.
I'd just like to, as usual, put my vote in for later so that the people who are on the West Coast don't have to join too early in the morning.
Yep. Let's see how this plays out. There's only a few people who voted, nowhere near as many people who regularly attend slash not slash occasionally attend. Let's see what comes out of this.
The link's in the chat, so I'd suggest you click it now and vote now while we're in this meeting. Which
We can come back and check at the end of the meeting to see where everything's at. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michael. Let me move to the other parts of what we're looking at. So, other updates. We're still in updates area. Oh, the Spark testing event EOI. So this is out. The next Connectathon isn't scheduled till around somewhere in September, so there's a little bit of a local testing gap. Sparked is interested in organising a 1 day combined testing event with some connected scenarios across all these different tracks, and going across core, patient summary, e-requesting, HCA provider directory. Thank you to the agency for participating in this, and also looking at smart forms so that we can go across these. Now, if that's something you're interested in, this is an EOI to just tell us where and when would be good. It's not actually registering to test. It's just saying, come to Adelaide, come to Brisbane, come to Sydney. This is where I would like to test this, and these are the dates that I think would be really helpful for me. So that's what this EOI is, and that's what we're asking people to do. If you're not interested, if that doesn't work for you, either because of the kind of content or also because of the times of year, that's fine. That's not a problem. It's sort of what we're trying to check of and gauge of how much interest there is. There was a lot last year, so we're checking again, and if there is enough interest, Sparked will go out and find a venue at the location at that time to enable us to get together and do some more of the connected testing scenarios. So just wanted to remind people about that. That's out. Okay, next bit. I'm going to hand over to you, Heath. I think I'll still keep sharing screen. You just tell me when to click.
Absolutely. So we've got the opportunity, as in Danielle and I, to visit the May 2026 HL7 FHIR Connectathon and Working Group meeting in Rotterdam. And as part of that, we're offering for vendors to participate in the Connectathon as part of the European Health Data Space track, and as being on the ground in person, we're willing to help facilitate your implementation, your participation in that session. So obviously it's in Europe, so it will be, and it's a Saturday and a Sunday, and it will be basically our nights. So we're not necessarily expecting you to be up or wanting to do anything in person or be part of it on a Saturday night, a Sunday night. Hence why we're offering to help facilitate that. The intent of the track, it's a very broad track as far as we understand at this point, but there is a part of it that is around the testing of the European Patient Summary. And what we would like to do is actually bring the Australian implementations of AU PS and actually test that in the context of those that are also testing European. So just ensure that we've got compatibility between the European implementations and the Australian, but we're also hoping that there will be other jurisdictions there as well, perhaps Canada and US jurisdictional ones there as well. So basically, we're looking for vendors that have a product that either implements IPS or AUPS as either a producer or a consumer. And if you are interested, if you can and willing to be available or put your product up online so that it's accessible during those weird hours, then you can let us know that you're interested. On the next slide, we've got what your expectations would be, I think, on the next slide. Anyhow, so the expectations, thank you. Why would we get involved, I guess, in the first place? So go back a slide. Yeah. We're basically validating your system capability and get some confidence that you would be able to share your patient summaries across international borders. You would certainly get some global exposure of your systems to other healthcare leaders, potential partners, as in software integrators, etc., and customers worldwide. You'd certainly be helping, not just as you have done here within Australia, the standards or AU PS implementation guide here, you would actually be helping this globally, ensuring that we've got that global capability of sharing things across the globe. So we would want you to have your system available during those times. We would like to be able to get some basic training and user documentation on how to use your system so that we can actually facilitate and make sure that your system is usable at the Connectathon. We're looking for you to provide a little bit of technical support to set things up in advance. And if anything goes wrong, you provide some kind of level of support during the Connectathon. Again, acknowledging the fact that overnight is probably not likely to be happening, but perhaps the next day. And then basically help us get some test data into your system so that it aligns with the test scenarios that are yet to be determined for that particular scenario. And so if you're interested, please email sparked@saro.com.au by 3rd of April, which is Good Friday, yet again.
Yeah, I think we kind of missed that memo. It was public holiday. Hey, look, we're hardworking people.
It's not on my calendar.
It's not in my calendar either. All right. Any questions about this? Because I mean, we're not going to have a meeting to talk about this one after. I'm going to pop a post on Zulip. So you can either put a post on Zulip, you can email sparked@csiro.au if you've got questions, or you can ask Keith and I now if there's anything that's occurred to you while you were hearing us speak about this that you want to know more about. All right, not hearing anything so far, so let's just do a very quick recap from Michael Wilson. I'll keep sharing, Michael. You just tell me when next slide on some of what happened yesterday in the AU Core work group, and then we'll go into the patient summary meat of this meeting.
Yep, I'll just go through this really quickly. So we had a detailed call about this yesterday in the AU Core main call, but we're transitioning from a technical design group now to a work group. So if you actually want all the detail of this, go watch the recording from yesterday's meeting. But otherwise, this really quick recap here. HL7 Australia has had elections for co-chairs for the new work groups. That's now completed. So these are our new co-chairs. You'll see some that are continuing on from the TDG and some new faces, including myself, being a co-chair here. You'll note Danielle isn't on here as a co-chair, so this will be her last meeting chairing one of these, but she's not going anywhere. She's still project lead, still been running a lot of the business we're doing here. So she's just passing the baton for co-chairs. Also like to thank all the outgoing co-chairs like Marvin and Michael Drahan and like. Thank you so much for everything you've contributed so far. So these are our new co-chairs. Hopefully you've seen most of us around at events and the like. I might just jump to the next one. So what does it mean? Not a lot for AU Core. You'll notice that we now have a new work group, an AU Core work group. We stand alone on our own work group. Before, the technical design group was a subgroup of the FHIR work group, but now we've graduated. We've got our own work group to ourselves. But within that, we have our two projects with the AU Core FHIR IG project and the AU Patient Summary FHIR IG project. So those projects already existed, they're already running, they're going to continue running, they're just going to now sit under the new work group with our new co-chairs, but otherwise business as usual for these projects, like these meetings we have today. They'll just continue on business as usual. We might just jump to the next one. The one thing we are doing as part of setting up the new work group is we need to have a mission and charter. Previously, we had a terms of reference for the subcommittee or the TDG. But now we will have our own mission and charter. I'll paste a link in the chat. Well, I had a link in the chat. Let me just grab it again. And that's currently out for review. We'll discuss that at the next AU Core main call on the 2nd of April. So have a look at that. If you've got any comments, please add them on the Confluence page. Come along to the AU Core workgroup call, and we'll discuss that. But other than that, if you'd like more info, watch the recording from yesterday. But from a patient summary point of view, business as usual, we're going to keep these meetings running as usual, just with some new co-chairs. I think that might be about it, Daniel. A quick update.
Thanks very much, Michael. So let's get into a bit of ballot and then some of the report back and some of the decisions we're going to try to make here. Oh, this is boring and we all know it. Let's do updates. Okay, dokie. Ballot period is open except one more day, just today. So at the end of today, if you were eligible to vote, are eligible, and you haven't voted yet, you've got today to do it. It closes today. So from our next call, we're going to be going through as a project the feedback that's come in. There already is feedback available. We've also been fortunate enough to get some feedback from international, and so we can have a look at that as well. And then we're going to try to wrap up the ballot reconciliation, obviously as fast as possible, because, you know, that's all the work that we've already done. And I'm always interested to move into the new shiny things. But the goal is to have that done by really the end of May. And that would all ideally kind of line up with the Rotterdam testing that we would be able to work as a project group through the feedback we've gotten from ballot reconciliation, make our decisions on what, if any, changes that we're going to do for AU Patient Summary R1, do a snapshot of that IG, and then go actually test that internationally to confirm that the goal that we've had all along is that it's a patient summary that works within the particular workflows needed for Australia, that it also acts like an IPS outside our borders. So I'm pretty keen to work with Heath and those people who can make available some endpoints to test against and the international vendors to actually go confirm that. Let's actually check that IPS systems can receive an AU patient summary, can display it, that it can actually function. So I think that's going to be really interesting to do. And then we're going to try to publish. So where we are now in terms of voting, we've got actually quite a few votes already in. There's 27 affirmative, there's 11 negative. Those are all from the same organisation though. 19 who have signed up have yet to vote. So we've got a 66% voted. I'm chasing up a couple of folks. I think, Brett, you're also probably chasing up a few ballot voters with your HL7 AU ballot hat on. And we want to get all of that in. And then, so yeah, that's going to be what we're going to run through in the next meeting is what's kind of like the scope of the feedback, what's our time frames, how we're going to like go through and review that feedback. All right, let's do Connectathon report. Now, there's quite a few slides here, so I might actually hand over to screen sharing to you, Heath. Would that be better?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
I will try and run through this really quickly. Okay, AU Patient Summary Track was held at the Connectathon. Was it only last week or the week before? It was last week. Maybe it's the week before. Testing, what we were doing was testing the R1 snapshot. That was the main objective of the track. We have ongoing sort of wanting to engage with new implementers, existing implementers, trying to get their feedback on issues that they're having, etc. And by doing that, we actually took a more structured approach or attempted a more structured approach rather than just people doing whatever they feel like. We actually had a couple of scenarios that we went through. Having a server that was a producer to generate a patient summary, applications that are generating patient summaries, perhaps using some sort of curation process. Or we've also had some middleware solutions that were doing that in an automated manner, and also consumer applications that were able to access and display patient summaries or do anything else that might be interesting to do with it. So as basically for each of those, we had a set of examples that we wanted to run through when there's basically no known data for the mandatory sections, when we actually just had mandatory sections populated with entries, and then we started to look at some other recommended sections as well, such as immunizations and procedures, and looked at how that worked across each of those main actors in the systems. So this is basically a representation of all of the connections that we had going on in the room, not just for AU Patient Summary, but included AU Core in green, and also e-requesting in blue on the right-hand side there. But as you can see, there was quite a lot going on in the room, but more focusing on patient summary, we still had a fair bit of connectivity going on between a number of vendors and organizations. So in the context of those scenarios, we had Epic and Best Practice and the Spark server, we had a Better server, we had the ADOJ server, and we also had some apps in the middle, which also including middleware. So we had Orion with the middleware, and we had a couple of viewers, Better Software, Create IT, and Intervise had a viewer there, and as well. So the one in the middle was kind of a curation type of apps, and the viewers on the right. Some of the issues that were discovered around still having some troubles around URLs within the bundles, some inconsistencies in the narrative generation, and basically the need for additional guidance around how to consume the patient summary. We also had a little retrospective around the Connectathon or the particular track, and basically I think everyone was quite positive around how the track was working, that we get together and share these things. The Inferno test kit in particular, the updated one that we had running there, was very useful. And the idea of the structured sessions was good, and actually wanting to perhaps go another step further around structuring them even more and starting some preparation for those in advance of the Connectathons as well, so that had some more preparation around those. We had some breakout sessions around how to identify an AU patient summary. We also had a bit more of we had one of the vendors that wanted to talk about a couple of items around some of the approaches that they were taking as a middleware product, taking data from multiple patient summaries and marking them with some provenance on where that data come from, so that it was exposed in this aggregated patient summary that they were producing. So that was interesting on how they were doing that and some of the problems that they were having, and also the idea, there was a brief conversation around the expiry of shared health links in there as well. So is there any questions on the Connectathon before I move on to the working group, or any other reflections from that day?
Yeah, there are a few people who are online who were also there. Is there anything else that people wanted to share about the Connectathon that they'd like to highlight for the group?
I will say that I think as a community we're maturing in terms of the Connectathon. I remember back in the early days it was really kicking tires, trying a few things in Postman, but now it seems as though people are just really bringing their systems and actually doing real connecting. So I think that's really good to see.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why we've sort of started to feel that we could take this more structured approach. It wasn't just, using the day as a way to produce their solutions. It was actually true testing and connecting. So yeah, I agree with you, Marvin. Okay, so backing up a day or two, we actually had the working group meeting. As Danielle said, we had a really good day that day. It was 4 quarters that covered different working group topics. We actually had a FHIR working group session. We had 2 AU core sessions and one that focused on patient summary. So I'm reporting mainly on the patient summary session that we did, where we talked about the ongoing issue around must support obligations for elements with multiple cardinality. We were looking at basically the request for feedback sections in the R1 ballot that's still open today if people want to provide some request feedback on that.
Hey,
And yes,
I guess for this one, looking at the time, would you be amenable to bumping the update on this one in particular to our next call?
sure.
Um, I think there's some decisions that were put on the agenda for today, and this isn't one of them. So I think this is more of an update and a feedback. So I think that's the right place to stop to ask people to provide feedback on this, and then we can like bring all of that together at the next call.
Sure.
Okay.
Um, okay, and basically we came to no conclusion as usual, so we're still looking for feedback, I guess. Um, okay, so moving on to the next topic around considerations when consuming an IPS document in AU. This goes back to November, where we had Graham present some issues around, or of the various issues that he feels that we should be considering as part of receiving IPSs from other jurisdictions within our implementations here in Australia, and that we needed to indicate what we expect systems to do when they're receiving an AU patient summary and when it's not an AU patient summary. And it's still an IPS, but not an AU PS. So how do we actually determine this is where this is led to, and we agreed that there needed to be a clear and reliable way to identify that. So as part of the ballot, we've raised a JIRA ticket that we would like people to put feedback on as comments. And this is the request for feedback item in the ballot as it still stands. But we've been considering 3 options at the moment, which is to use meta.profile in either the composition or bundle, using composition type. That is equivalent to a concept of AU patient summary, or something that is the application feature framework. So this topic is basically, this JIRA ticket is what we're commenting against, and it's basically suggesting this change request with one of those 3 options up there. And what those that are new to the application feature framework, it is a new IG that is still in draft with an additional feature assertion that would appear on the composition meta element that is effectively indicating that this IPS was generated using the AU PS IG as a feature. So it refers back to a feature definition defined in that IG, and we're actually using that feature definition as the assertion that it was generated under that particular feature, and there's alignment with the actor obligations associated with that particular feature. Bit of a whirlwind description there, but the discussion that we had in the room was that the use of meta.profile could not be relied on because it can be changed and removed by servers. And we also looked at the composition.type, which was previously a preferred option that was considered I think back in December, and someone brought up the idea of what happens if we wanted to actually assert that this IPS is aligned with both the AU patient summary and, say, a New Zealand patient summary or a US patient summary. And as a result, we did not feel that that was appropriate, because we would, based on sort of the best practice of coding values, you cannot have multiple codings within a single type of value that means something different. And effectively, AU patient summary and New Zealand patient summary are different. The codings included in that one type have to mean the same thing, although they may vary in granularity, such as patient summary versus AU patient summary. So we kind of tentatively discounted that and thought that this is probably the remaining option. And we went to a bit of a mentee, as we do in these sessions, and we got certainly some strong support for the use of the feature framework. But there was another. So what's the other? There was a suggestion that we use the feature assertion extension on the provenance, which is actually allowed as per that feature assertion extension. You can see on the bottom right corner there that it can be both on a resource.meta, as was previously proposed, or on the provenance.target. So that was actually quite an interesting one, but that's where the working group meeting got to. We then moved over onto the Thursday afternoon, 2 days later, and into the hot topics session of patient summary track, and we started the conversation again from that point. And we started considering the implications of implementing the feature framework and wondered if there was the same problems with meta.extension as we have with meta.profile. In other words, could servers remove that extension or assertion because it comes under that group of composition.meta? And we also looked at what is the status of the framework IG and the assertion extension. And there was Graham suggested that it was imminent, and but we also pointed out that there was perhaps a few things that needed to be reworked and clearer before it was finalized. And we also worked through what the other option might look like. And really, we got to the point where we thought, well, actually, it's probably a fairly good option on the table, because we are likely to be wanting to use provenance resources in the future anyway, even though it's not part of R1. But we probably do need to support that that resource for, as previously indicated, around the recording of where data comes from, etc. But also for digital signatures. So it's a very likely candidate still. But in the end, we agreed that we needed to align with what other jurisdictions are doing. And that's where Graham basically said he will progress this at a group called the International Patient Summary Coordination Committee, which is looking at ensuring consistency of IPS implementations across the globe. So at that point, Danielle, I saw your message but didn't take note of it. Did you want to
I
proceed?
was just giving you a warning on time. No, no more than that. I see that we are getting to a decision, so that is wonderful. But yes, like 5-minute warning, we want to either get to a decision or move on to the next topic.
Okay. So if we go back to the IG, what's in the R1 IG at the moment under this considerations of consuming a patient summary within Australia, there's actually 2 JIRA tickets, one which is about the considerations, and the other one is about the identification of patient summary documents. And so this particular card here, given that we've got to this point of, right, we think that we've discounted a couple, we've also got a 4th option, but in the end, we've got agreement that we want to do this in alignment with the rest of the world. I'm I'm suggesting today that for this particular JIRA ticket that's associated with R1, that we consider this for future use. So effectively, just putting it on hold for now. So this is for the identification part of the considerations of consuming patient summary. Not we can still progress those considerations, but around identifying the document, that we just mothball this for now and consider for future use, and not actually do anything in R1.
Okay, thank you, Heath. I see, Ricardo, you have put something in the chat, and Marvin, you've put your hand up. Ricardo, is your update in specific on this, like reliably identifying a document as a jurisdictional one, or is it otherwise? Is it some other but related topic?
It's on that too
Okay, could you
as well.
provide the
So
update?
today we had the first of what's been called a IPS Tiger Team meeting that happened this morning, and this is a meeting that kind of originated from a GDHP project called Best Practice IPS Best Practices project, and one of the things that will be tackled in the project is to try to progress that um, you know unequivocal identification of what's an IPS. So Graham was present at the meeting, and a few others from other jurisdictions as well. So I think this is gaining traction, and I guess we could then probably find out the best way to join up the dots as much as we can.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Marvin.
I'm happy to second Heath's proposal.
All right. I know, Heath, you've motioned and Marvin, you've seconded, but I just need to clarify the motion on the table. When we do consider for future use, we also might describe some particular triggers for how long we are going to consider this. So could I get you, Heath, to state the specific wording of the motion for the minutes and for the people on the call?
Well, I think the motion would be aligned with basically the last part around ensuring that there is some consistency internationally on how this is going to be done, and sounds like that's well in process. So at a point where we are comfortable that there is some international guidance or agreement on how we represent the identity of a jurisdiction IPS, that we can align with that, or not necessarily align, but reconsider
Okay.
at that point in time.
Okay, thank you, Heath. Marvin, I'll just check. You're still happy to second based on that clarification from Heath?
I am, yes.
Alrighty. So are there any other comments or questions before we look to vote on the proposed resolution of this item, which is to consider for future use? All right, I'm not hearing any, so I'm just going to put up the vote for the current motion. Again, via electronic polls, same rules. Please vote. If you need to, pop it in the chat with a +1, affirmative, negative, abstain, or say your name, affirmative, negative, abstain. And thank you, everybody, understanding those that need to drop off now. Appreciate your time. Alrighty, 70% have voted. We're still waiting on a few more people. Please vote affirmative, negative, or abstain. And a couple more. Still waiting on a couple more. Alrighty, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end the poll. I'll share the results. And with what is in the chat, we have 19 affirmative, 0 negative, 6 abstain. The motion carries. We will mark this particular JIRA issue as consider for future use, on the understanding that this will be reconsidered by this project post a international advice on this topic. Thanks very much, Heath, and thank you everybody for voting. Oh, is it back to me? Okay. I better share my screen. Let me get to that. And what is the next one?
Is
Okay.
the coverage, testing coverage.
All right, I'm going to do that really quickly and then see if we can fit in our last vote that we're trying to do for today. So, okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't prepare slides. We've got a fantastic Confluence page. I'm going to go to it. This is covering off our patient summary FHIR IG testing. This page, by the way, is always kept up to date. So this Confluence page, out of all the cumulative results of all our different testing scenarios, and we'll update it out of the international as well for Rotterdam, has all our announcements on it around testing. So we've got the Spark DOI. I think we should add the Rotterdam one soon. Who are our testing partners? So, and that includes, well, actually, these one is the people who have tested, or the organizations and products, and who have given us permission to share the icons on. But here, that looks a little bit small, actually, doesn't it? What does that look like? Yeah, that's all right. So we've now got results at around patient summary for 19 different products. That's not 19 different organizations, because some organizations have multiple different products that will deal with patient summary. But we've got like 19 now. In particular, what got added from our last Connectathon that is completely new is Telstra Health looking into a HIE. And so they brought some of that, which was really, really interesting to have a look at. There's also some that aren't on here. I think Tailwind is on the line, who has been doing some really interesting work for eHealth New South Wales, but we don't have the results from that, so we can't add it yet. But I look forward to them getting to a point where they're comfortable sharing that. I think we had some increased coverage from Epic, who looks really close to being able to generate a fully conformant AU patient summary from their AU foundation system. Orion Health brought some fantastic stuff, Create IT, and of course we had some of the apps from Innovise. And I think they're not here, but we had Cognizant come and start to do some really interesting kind of assembler work. But they were only there for the first day, and I forgot to chase them up. So yeah, they're not included, but there's more stuff. Out of this, where we are now, looking at this, we've got, for test results, we've got 19 different systems. We had increased system coverage for almost everything, which was really interesting, except for things around practitioner role, and encounter. So there's something sort of around that. I think what we're seeing is a really strong increase in what we would call, I guess, software assembled or device authored patient summaries. And so we're getting additional systems, and we don't currently have any AU PS device profiles, which is why you're not seeing it tracked here. I think that's going to become increasingly relevant, that we really do need to start doing that, given what appears to me to be a really consistent use case from like the majority, honestly, that are doing device generated patient summaries. So although that's not an R1 thing because we're at Ballot, I think we're going to see that coming fast and hard for R2. Looking at our coverage and our numbers, and in fact, I'll actually go to this diagram instead. So, ooh, is that big enough for people? Is that okay? Viewing wise?
Yep.
All right, cool. So, looking at the list of the requirements that we're trying to track, and where we have coverage. We've got 100% coverage now of what are the must support and mandatory elements and the requirements across the majority of our profiles. That's all that dark green, or I don't know, I'd call it sage, but let's just say the darker green. For the lighter green, we're still meeting our AFMM requirements, which is over 80%. We need to have got more than three systems, or three or more systems, sorry, testing the majority, a majority here is 80%, of mandatory and must support elements. So we actually did that for composition. I'm a little bit shocked because composition has so many sections, but we've actually done it. It's really interesting to look at the coverage of how many systems are doing things around like patient summary or all sorts of other things. We've got it for encounter and medication request. Where we don't have it, and this is really interesting to me, is practitioner role. So I think I'm going to do a little call out because I actually think some systems have done this, but we maybe weren't checking it at the time. So I'm going to speak to a few people we have results from that I actually think are testing this and follow up on it. But for now, we don't have like official results around that. Um, Pathology result, again, same thing, but the pathology result mark is really high. It's looking at things like reference range and all the others that we're inheriting must supports from AU Core and um, I'm not surprised that we aren't seeing all of that in a patient summary document. And the last one is related person, where we just, again, aren't seeing everything. I think that's really a use case wise. Some systems can deal with it, but I haven't seen any strong use cases from systems about the inclusion of related persons, either for like authoring patient summaries or for having them being tracked in some way. I mean, if you're on the line and you have absolutely got related persons and you have a use case for that, I'd be really interested to hear it. But it just doesn't, it's just not that common at this point in time. So that's where we are, which is, I think, a really pretty good result. Um, in terms of interactions, these aren't requirements because we don't have any conformance requirements around interactions. One of the things that I've noted is that dollar summary is increasingly persuasive. We've now got 12 different systems we have results for that have dollar summary. Um, Our reporting diagram uses the same colors as the conformance diagram for profiles, even though they're not conformance requirements. This is more of a maybe a future thing. But yeah, it's interesting to note we've now got 12 evidence from 12 systems in Australia who are doing dollar summary for generating AU patient summaries. And of the 5 different parameters that you can use for dollar summary, we've got consistent results for 3, and most systems are doing 4, I think, actually. One, I guess, of the notable ones are things like I think Orion Health is doing the profile. Oh no, that might be in $doc ref. There's which would bring me to, I think, sorry.
Profile. Sorry, Danielle, we do profile on dollar summary.
Aha, that's what I thought. Yes, perfect. And that's actually a bit rare. So most of the systems that we've been looking at, they're not at this point implementing the profile parameter. That might become more common as we're looking at supporting, I guess, multinational jurisdictional requirements, whether or not that's fixed by endpoint or whether or not you make it a particular endpoint, but you actually allow the parameter profile. Like, I guess that's the kinds of things we're working through. But yeah, so that's the summary of where we are now. More people doing $doc ref, more people doing dollar summary. But I'm still not seeing any particular like searching around document reference or bundle. Heath, anything else that you wanted to call out about particular interactions?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So that's what I wanted to share is just where that's at now, I guess. So I think what we should do is hand over to the next topic unless people have any particular questions. All right, I think Dushi, that's you. If you want to share screen, or do you want me to?
Sorry, I was on mute. You can keep sharing, or I can share. Doesn't matter. I'll share.
Alrighty.
Let me just. Okay, I'll grab the screen. Can you let me know if you can see it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, great. So this is the AFMM2 review for AU Patient Summary artifacts, and we've seen this many times. These are the levels that are relevant to us. For patient summary, we want to be at AFMM2 when we publish as working standard. All patient summary artifacts are at AFMM1 currently, which basically means they are stable. There is no outstanding errors and warnings that haven't been reviewed and accepted. And it also said the artifacts ready for implementation, which means ready for testing, which we've done. And then to move to FMM2, we need some evidence of testing, and specifically we need the artifacts have to be tested by at least 3 independent developed systems, and the testing needs to cover most of the profile, at least 80% of the core data elements, and results need to be reviewed and accepted by the working group. And this is the summary of what we've just seen from Danielle's presentation. I've just pulled the results that are relevant to AFMM2 discussion. So this is not showing the profiles that Danielle mentioned that are not meeting AFMM2 criteria. And yeah, as Danielle mentioned, we can see that most profiles actually exceed AFMM2 criteria. We have a number of profiles with 100% coverage. So for example, allergy intolerance has been tested by 19 systems, and across those 19 systems, we have tested and demonstrated 100% of must support and mandatory elements. We have a few that are slightly lower. So composition and counter medication requests and smoking status are lower than 100% coverage, but they still meet the requirements of MM2. So based on that, there is a JIRA ticket proposing to move these artifacts to FMM2 levels. So this lists profiles that we just looked at. So all of them are already at AFMM1, and testing shows they are fit for purpose. So before I make a motion, are there any questions about this JIRA ticket?
Okay, thanks, Dushi. So yeah, opening that up to the wider call. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything you want to go into more detail on if this is your first time hearing about this word AFMM? I think, we should go into that if there are any questions or anything else. All right, I'm not hearing any or seeing any, Dushi, so I think you're okay to. Oh no, we've got a hand up, Heath.
So we're not including the actors in the AFMM2.
Not in this particular vote. No, not looking at that set. I would imagine that by the time we complete, and I'll just double check that with Dushi, that this is not the only AFMM2 JIRA that will come. This is an initial one, and there will be one or more before we publish the first release that will bring in other artifacts.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. And for actors, I'm pretty sure we have enough evidence to go to FMM2. We just need to go through that and summarize results of the testing that's been done so far. And that'll be included in the other ticket for other artifacts.
Okay, thank you, Dushi. Tony. And you're on mute, Tony, sorry.
Yep. I just want to make sure that this doesn't rule out addition of items in the future.
Oh, you were breaking up there for me. I heard that this doesn't rule out, and then what you said it shouldn't rule out, I didn't hear. Could you say it again or pop it in the chat?
As long as this doesn't rule out addition of other items in future.
Okay, so yes, as long as this doesn't rule out addition of other items in future. Okay, thank you. Dushi, would you like to respond to that? If you're speaking, Dushi, you're on mute too.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
It doesn't. So this is the criteria for AFMM 2 levels. Our FHIR maturity level defines more than just these two. So they go from draft, which is the initial draft, to FMM 5, I think, and then we have normative. So this is not the final version of these artifacts.
Now I might refocus because I think what Tony was really asking about is more, are we still able to include additional kinds of information in the patient summary and do work on that? All of those new items would also go through their own maturity cycle. Is that right, Tony, that you were looking at more content kind of stuff?
Yes.
Sorry, I misunderstood that.
And I might just quickly comment, which is why I got my hand up. So the AU PS composition, which is one of these items that's going to AFMM2, does actually allow undefined sections. So that if you wanted to, you could include things like dietary information into it. So even though composition is going to be AFMM2 with its maturity, its actual model does allow other content in it. So although the content around dietary is not here in this list, that's because it doesn't stop you coming up with your own version of that or just including a narrative, etc., as part of that composition.
Thank you, Heath, for that clarification. Tony, are there any other comments or questions you'd like to make around that topic?
No, thank you. No.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions before we look to a motion? All right, not hearing any. Dushi, did you want to make a motion?
Thanks. Yes, thank you. So I would like to mention that this is persuasive and that these AU patient summary artifacts should be moved to FMM2.
Okay, thank you, Dushi. Who is happy to second that?
Marika, I'll second.
Thanks, Marika. Any other comments and questions while I am finding the electronic poll? Alrighty, you should see that just pop up in front of you now to vote affirmative, negative, or abstain based on what's been presented, that the criteria for AFMM2 has been met, and that we should be happy to endorse that we can mark these artifacts as AFMM2. All right, we've got 70% of people voted, so just waiting on a few more. Okay, I can see a couple in the chat. 80% have voted, so just one or two more and then I'll close the poll. All right, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll and share the results. So with what's in the chat, there are 16 affirmative, 0 negative, 4 abstain. The motion carries. We are happy to say that these particular artifacts are now at the maturity level of AFMM2. Thank you very much, Dushi.
Thank you.
Heath, that was Orion Health. Just the question from Heath in the chat. Okay.
I will
So I
stop
should.
sharing now. Sorry, Danielle.
No, that's fine. We are making magnificent time. I'm going to share the last couple of slides before we close out, because we don't need to start a new topic because there's only really a few minutes left, right? So let's just do what's next meeting, and leave anything else to upcoming calls. So what's next? Um, we've now decided 10th of April. Um, the particular time on the 10th of April, we are leaning into the Zulip poll. So I'll just remind everyone now, please make sure that you are, okay, not that one, here on the Zulip poll. What time suits you? If we have an overwhelming majority, that will automatically be the 10th of April time. I think that just got repopped in the chat. So please vote as soon as possible. As soon as it's really clear, we'll send out meeting invites. Okay, back to this. That's intended to be the first bit in which we look now at the completed voting. Don't forget to vote, people. For patient summary and what changes, if any, we need to make to release what is the initial release of patient summary. So then we can get started into the second release, which might include things like nutrition, which might include things like all sorts of other exciting items that we haven't worked on in the first release. So next call, 10th of April. It's a really small looking agenda, but it'll take a lot of time because this ballot reconciliation, I don't know exactly what the topics are. I'm looking to send out an email next Monday, based on the work that the co-chairs will do. They're responsible for the admin of closing out the ballot and getting everything ready. So we will advise people via email and on Zulip, what will actually be discussed at our next meeting. But it's going to be ballot-y things. That's what I can tell you. So that's all we have today. Before we close, is there anything people would like to raise or comment on? All right, not hearing anything. I'm going to bring the meeting to a close and thanks everyone for your time. Please don't forget to add to the Zulip poll or vote if you're in ballot.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.